Morning, Mark.
Good morning, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing well. Or you've got a different tenor in your voice. Is that because you just woke up or something else?
Just woke up,
Well, good morning to you.
but I did take a shower.
Ooh, you're ahead of me on that one. I had my first call at 7 a.m., which I don't really like to do, but that means the teeth are yet to be brushed. I just see a phone number come in. I'm gonna just wager to guess that that's our friend Dr. Carl Schwartz. Oh, there he is. Yes, right on.
And I don't know if Carrie is going to be in a place in Spain where she can connect.
She sent me a note saying that she wants to talk at 11:30 Pacific time. So we'll talk more than once, which I think is probably a good thing. I'm not sure if Miracle's going to join us, but I'll send her a little nudge here.
I'm here.
Hey, Carl.
Good morning, you people. You
There
guys.
he is.
You humans. You sentient creatures.
We're being. When I think I might have mentioned this to maybe both of you, but I have this vision of like all the badass 70 somethings I know coming together, because I have a lot of really awesome 70 something year old friends. So the two of you I would count amongst this group, and I'm happy that the two of you are getting to meet. So Mark, I've became friends with Carl through a mutual friend that we have and board member of Regenerating Sonora. His name's John Ward. And it's through John that I met Carl. He lives about an hour away. And so he will grace me with his presence by coming down for visits, or every once in a while I'll come see him there in Tempe. And I appreciate the fact that this man has read many of the things that I've read, and has the understanding of like how to put that in its own place, and values these other aspects of being that are more than just the intellectually centered ones. So I appreciate that, and I learn a lot from Carl, and we have a lot of fun. And there's always a mixture of sensuality and sacrilege, all kind of wrapped into whatever we end up doing. So that I appreciate. And Carl, Mark, I first came across Mark when I was trying to grok Stafford Beer's viable systems model, and learn more about some of these cybernetic frameworks and practices. It was hard for me to really grasp it. And then I found Mark's videos online, and then he was just able to translate the techno whatever into like easy everyday people speak. And with that, I found Mark's contact information. We started having conversations, and his mission around relocalizing creativity really struck me. And the way in which we're able to play together has been very fun and very helpful for me, and enjoyable. So with that, I will say that you guys are quasi well introduced enough for us to have a good conversation. And it might be worth spending more time in the get to know each other phase than in the here's what we're going to do phase for this conversation, but I'm open to other things. So there you go. Carl, good morning and hi.
Good morning. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Carl. Hey, is it with a K or a C?
C.
Good.
And
All
that's
right, got it.
because my father didn't want me confused with Karl Marx. And that's a true statement.
And your father thought most people would know which letter Carl started with, which was
He had a larger view than he had any right to carry.
interesting. Well, with that introduction from Chris, I really look forward to getting to know you and learning with you and from you. So it's cool.
Chris, should I, maybe I can just show my hand pretty quickly. Whoops, I'm looking at these sugar-free, flour-free cookies in the oven. and they look like they're doing real well.
Oh,
There's a breathwork class tonight, and I bring these cookies, and if I don't, little betrayal and treason set in for feeling.
What
understood.
kind of class?
It's a breathwork class. The naturopathic woman who's there and her husband, Ray's got a lot of esoteric background. They're kind of heading towards, well, they are involved in plant medicine. And then they're also heading towards doing intense 2 and 3 hour sessions of holotropic breathing
Dang.
with the addition of LSD
Oh, wow.
to try to make these characterological breakthroughs.
Uh-huh.
So that's tonight. Whoops, I better turn that off. Look at that. That's tonight at 7. So, Mark, I ran programs for Court Place youth mostly and families for a very long time. And in that stretch, I became intimately familiar with change models because I was really tying it into psychology. I felt psychology was very lean, thin, and kind of hollow. So I added cybernetics, systems thinking, kind of theatrics, kind of role playing, anything sensual, anything cathartic that could help impressions settle, especially with strong needs for change, is what I studied and brought them back to these programs. The other half of it was fierce awareness, Gurdjieff work stuff, because that's what got me to come out from LA to be in Phoenix, was the Gurdjieff fourth way work, which then got tied into Buddhism at the center where I lived for a year and did just 24/7 kinds of work that first year, and then decided not to go back to LA to be a lawyer. I'd been a lawyer for 7 years. So that was the beginning, and time has gone on and decades have gone on and all kinds of programming has gone on. And here it is later in the day, and I meet Chris, who's wanting to resurrect, renovate Superior. And what came up the other day was the fact that there's young people, obviously, and some of them are homeless, and this whole kind of underdog world, which I'm very familiar with. I'm super familiar with it. And I said I would be interested potentially in a process, which I am familiar with again, to find a cadre of young people. I'm very fierce on self-reliance. I'm not so fierce on hand-downs, gifting, gratis, grants. A lot of the top-down processes I'm not so keen on. I've seen them throughout, years. My own agency sort of gets them. I didn't have the best feeling that the agency more or less was inert and stagnant. It did okay work in the community. Like the domestic violence shelters were doing okay work in moments, but they really didn't retrain consciousness. They really didn't teach awareness. They really was not a close examination. It was a service. So I've always been suspicious of service stuff. So I said to Chris, I'd be willing if we could find this cadre of younger people to form kind of a cell. It's like a communist cell, where by certain intense processes, self-selection processes, both self-awareness, self-examination, self-responsibility, and incentive would be combined. And so in this case, that would look something like giving whoever these 6, 7, 8, or 8 young people would be, giving them an actual financial incentive to show up once or twice a week, be drug-free, be motivated in certain very specific ways that the group is building, and thereby start from underneath, not on top, to form some kind of self-respect for Superior based on the youth, not based on the, other populations. The parents have very particular views about what they think kids should do. Grandparents have very particular views about what they think their kids should do and the grandkids should do. So I was looking for a more transparent way to create agency, initiation, and self-responsibility. So I laid that process out to Chris a little bit as I potentially could run it. I had done a flyer for an in the hood sort of all Afro-American group here in Phoenix called Who Gives a Shit? Do You Give a Shit? And that was more designed for wellness, fighting diabetes, heart disease, all the kind of things that go on with lousy eating. And that was more recent. And once again, I realized there's a lot of talk and there's not a lot to do in that community as well. There's just a lot of preaching and talking and intending, but with about a decade left of living, I'm not interested anymore in the talking. But I am willing to contribute, show up, and help facilitate this other kind of instigation. I'll just call it an instigation, investigation and instigation. So that's my part this morning with Chris and finding out if that can be a thing.
It sounds great to me. Everything you said, I completely agree with. And, you know, I assume you've run across John McKnight and his wonderful book, The Careless Society. And if you haven't, you would love it.
Well, would it be one more book that says the same thing, or would I really be introduced to something novel?
I don't know if it would be novel, but it is so well stated, and it came at the time. You know, he studied with you know, I'm just waking up, but a guy that had that school down in Mexico, that Jesuit priest, Ivan Illich.
Mm-hmm.
So if you like, I really like Ivan Illich a lot.
Well, I do too. Is he still alive?
No. He actually died of some facial cancer that he didn't treat and let it go. Something he could have, but you know, he was kind of our age when he died. But anyway, John's an interesting guy. John's still alive and writing books and stuff. And the reason that it might be worth reading is so that you can, with confidence, hand it to other people, because they could catch up with you very quickly. And it's very small and it is impassioned. So anyway, I don't care if you read it or not, but it really woke me up and to exactly, well, a piece of what you said, and that is that the way we have structured governments, we have basically taken the agency out of neighborhoods.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So if we can pull this off, that's fabulous.
Yeah.
And keep the kids around so they don't move down the street, which goes on all the time.
Yeah. So I look forward to working with you. I think what your past and what you know will attempt with these kids is completely resonant, but very different than what Carrie will do. And I'm just the tool guy, actually.
Okay. Everyone's needed.
I'm interested in this possibility of stacking these programs in a way. Like right now, we're doing some movie nights at the community center, and it's a way to start to wake the building up and wake us all up to the fact that we have this place that we could be going to have a certain set of experiences. So we're doing some movie nights and other activities at the moment, and then I can picture that then Carl, you doing your program, that then forms we now have a group of young people who have their will appropriately stoked and enlivened, and that it's then that the next step is working with the See the Systems program that Carrie has, and then we develop from there. So casting the wide net, and it starts to filter down a bit, and appropriately so.
Let me give you an example. There's an old French film. God, what is it called? It was made in the 30s. It's a well-known film. It's a classic. What the frig was that called? When the film opens, there's one of the most kaleidoscopic, dense crowd scenes you'll ever see in your life. And it's really got an all and everything feel to it. It's like all of life is happening in this opening scene. It's probably in Paris. And it's so full that you can't really focus on any one thing. I mean, the camera won't let you. And so the feeling is not one of being stuffed, it's one of being invited. And so cinematically, that's one of the few films I know that doesn't push me away, it invites me in. And yet there's more going on than in almost any film I see, where the focus is so intense, the effects are to drive a rivet through you, and kind of it's force. It's basically force. And in this film, it's all art. It's all kind of invitation. So, as, for example, if I were to construct something for the space you've got, Chris, let's say it's an open house, let's call it, right? And it's a decent sized space. So to have, I'm just constructing this in the moment, to have some 4-year-old jumping on a trampoline over there, to have a card reader in the corner, to have a palm reader in the middle, to have a sustenance expert somewhere on the other side, to have somebody doing a flower arrangement 6 feet away, to have somebody with their baked goods 6 feet away from that, to be an all and everything in the one space would be stacking and kaleidoscopically inviting people in that particular form. And someone could say, probably they would say, what's the theme here? This lacks focus. And the answer would be, this is all and everything right in one building. Because to me, resurrecting a town which has lost its activity and spirit implies that it's lost its kaleidoscopic importance. It isn't just economic. It isn't just spiritual. It isn't just emotional, so forth. And so when I, this last year, let's say, would meet different people up there, each person just had this one little slice. And then that's what I would experience. And then somebody else would have some other little slice. And it was almost like a fixation. It was almost like, well, we can't do this unless this slice of the pie it fits into the crust. And I'm thinking, no, there's just, you can take one pie and make 16 slices, or you can make 2. So if you make 2, that's force, that's indulgence. If you make 16, that's choice. That's what I'm calling agency. So in this process with these kids, they will experience the criteria. They will experience the selection. They will even experience the refutation that integrity demands. Integrity is not democratic. Integrity is not fair. Integrity is when things really fit together, not because they're even, but because they function. And so that's the process I want to run with these people, so we can come away a little bit from the inertia of social justice. I mean, practicing law all those years, social justice, I got a lot to say about that, but I was there for it, late 60s kind of stuff. So anyway, that's a little bit of a preview of how I would tend to cinematically put a day together in sponsorship of this project.
You said one thing that I so far, I can't wait to stand one half step behind you and watch all this. Metaphorically speaking, I probably won't even be there, but we did a lot of work in healthcare, which is totally fucked. And we went to Sweden, but a county in Sweden was participating with us. Went on for about 7 years. And the CEO and a good friend of mine who worked there gave us a talk, heavily accented in Swedish. And I mean, they talked to us in English. There were about, I don't know, 30 of us there. And the talk was mapping chaos. And it was amazing. And at the end, one of the CEOs from Cambridge, Massachusetts said, Yeah, Sven, that's great. That's great. But can you just tell us the three things we need to do? And Sven goes, no, no, we're doing it all.
That's right. That's exactly
And
correct.
and that's in a organizational setting. What
Yep.
you're saying is we're doing it all in a social setting, which has a very different flavor, much more alive, a lot less mechanical.
Yep.
So I'm really interested. I saw immediately when you said that, I said, "Oh, this is a significant advancement upon what they were doing," and they're world famous now. Everyone around the world goes there to figure out how to improve medical systems. But the interesting thing that resonates with what you're saying for me, they have not been able to get medical care in all Swedish counties is top down. The CEO, the elected CEO of the county, is the head of the medical system, and she can hire and fire people, and so they get it done. But in his county, they have 13. There's 350,000 people in that county. It's a pretty big county, actually. A lot of it rural, and there are 13 municipalities. They have never been able to get the municipalities to participate with the medical system. And of course, that's where social services are. That's where nursing homes are. That's where education and childcare and all that stuff. And what I'm always looking for something that'll help me get past some barrier I don't know how to get past. And I think watching what you do, what gets done, with your hand in Superior, may give those guys, my friends in Sweden, a hint about how to go back and engage these people, because they didn't engage them to begin with, which is part of the problem. But I think that was the only problem I saw. And listening to you, I think, no, they did it too Toyota production system, too mechanical, too linear. Anyway, that's
No, but that's you're giving a very profound observation, because basically speaking, the book I've got in my right hand, which came yesterday from Amazon, because I'm reviewing the work that I did when I first got out here, Gurdjieff's Transformational Psychology, The Art of Compassionate Self-Study. And so the whole model that led me out here was very fierce self-awareness, self-study, self-confrontation. And it was, out of metaphysical types who came out of Europe for the most part in the 20s and 30s, 1920s.
Can you spell that guy's name?
Gurdjieff.
No, I missed one of the letters. Gur something.
Yeah, Gurd. Gurd.
Jiff.
Jieff.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
then and Gurdjieff had a couple of key students who also did some writing, very interesting writing. J.G. Bennett, I think, was a kind of a transformation. I call him transformational biologist out of England, but he did some amazing writing as well. And so these systems where they explain esoterically how the vital force field aspects work. So they don't use, we would use the word passive and diagnose it, for example. Person's too passive. You take an assertiveness training class, and so forth. We just have these really simplistic ways of pushing somebody over to the other side of the tracks, thinking that's the answer. When really the answer is in the inquiry, not in the behavior. So you have to teach people to inquire. And so that alone, having a group of 8 kids or whatever, sit there. I've done this before in actually a group process. Here's 8 kids, and I'll take my wallet out, and I'll take out $100 bill, and I'll throw it in the middle of the floor, and I'll say, look, that's going to go to somebody here. I can't tell you who yet, but just keep your fucking hands off it, because right now it's not yours. But at some point in this set of sequence and experiences, it will be one of yours. And I will feel great lifting it and handing it to you. And because of what happens with us, you will feel great receiving it. It won't feel like a hijack. It won't feel like a kidnap. It won't feel like a gift. It'll feel like an actual exchange. And then you'll tell me in this process, you will all speak to each other about what the fuck just got exchanged. What is this? What just happened? Right. So this very fierce training differently is what matters, because the brain loves novelty, and if it doesn't feel and sense it, it gets bored and goes to sleep and goes into automatic. It's just
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for introducing me to Carl. The day can only be an addition to this. This is great. Yeah, yeah. I love this, Carl. I wish Carrie were here, and you'll meet her. And I'll just say this because we'll give her this to look at. But Carrie typically presents herself, as a systems person, a systems modeler who has learned how to do it very effectively with young people. But the Carrie that I think of when I think of Carrie, I just view that as a toolbox she carries around with her. But I view Carrie as a poet carrying a toolbox.
Yeah.
Because she primarily, I'm in love with Carrie. I think it's reciprocated. I'm a lot harder to love than she is. But she really is a poet. I mean, and she isn't a poet every day. She's a poet when poetry comes to her. But boy, when you see the poetry, that really resonates with what I hear you're really setting up. You call it cinematic.
Yeah, cinematic approach. Yeah.
Cinematic approach. And to me, that's not that resonates with what I mean by poetic.
I believe so too. It's the whole right hemispheric appetite for feel, for form, for sensuality, for the affect of things, not the logic of things.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah. If we can build everything on top of that, or that as the core, I don't view it as a stack. I view it more as a plant. But if that's the core, then all the things that Carrie and I have to offer could flourish if we build it upon a retooling of business skills, which is actually what I'm doing. I'm very purposely trying to give neighborhoods the kind of tools that businesses and governments use to be so effective in denuding the neighborhood of agency.
I'm right with you. Well, I mean, in terms of what we're talking about, if we were to put out a flyer just to get stuff stirred up, even before the kids are chosen, and if the flyer said something like, why bribes are beautiful, it's provocative. And people would show up with opinions probably. And out would come, in my view, a presentation where if you bribe the experience, it doesn't necessarily change its value. It depends on the setting. And we bribe and seduce and persuade all the time anyway. And all of these role differentiations, many of them have bribes built into them because the role itself is a distribution of power in some way that's recognized, conveniently. So to get some of the more vocal townspeople to show up, have a sugar-free cookie, and shoot their mouth off a little bit, so they get stirred into something, so they want to come back to the next meeting. Because right now, to me, it's too sleepy.
Again, I'll learn whether or not I should be saying these kind of things, but you say things that trigger me, and usually I keep it to myself, but Chris wouldn't believe that, but I don't. What I just saw in listening to you was a setting where people come together. I mean, you're in your place, Chris, where people come together, and the way you avoid the difficulties of a large groups or of any group is that, Carla, what I saw is you organize the activities in such a way that every time it starts getting too, like a nuclear reaction is going to explode, you physically send them out to corners of the room or outside to do whatever they want to do together, and then keep bringing them back out and back and out and back. And that way you can, if you can tolerate this language, you can manage the social tension and the creativity that you create in the invitation.
Yeah, and the tool that Gurdjieff used when we used to do work days only to enhance self-awareness. And so for a group of adults to openly acknowledge, I mean, I used to run meditations when I was consulting in Mexico for wealthy parents and the kids who were in trouble. And often in those meditations, 10-minute meditations, people would come out of the meditation and say, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know I had thoughts like that." I mean, the simplest entry into the world of self-awareness. So to introduce the concept at all, and Gurdjieff would have a bell. And when the bell was struck, everybody had to shut up and freeze, only in the name of tuning in, not out. So initially, you're tuning out because you're irritated, that you're being disrupted. But then, since the invitation is to tune in, people actually start doing it.
Yeah.
And they raise their hand in a different way, which would be an analogy to go to your separate corners. We'll be back soon.
Yeah. And whether it's physical or metaphysical doesn't matter to me. I just saw a way in the way you're talking about this to, I in a way, I'm a control freak. I'm an ER physician. So you'd say, well, you have no control, and you don't, except you have huge control, but it's in the moment. In every moment, you're essentially orchestrating the behavior of a lot of people at a distance without really anyone feeling orchestrated, because
That's right.
And you're describing a way or a method of doing that. And what I'm trying to say, not very eloquently, is that I always worry. I'm very sensitive grew up in a fairly abusive home, so it might be part of it, but I'm very sensitive to what's going on around me. I don't always let the people around me know that I'm sensing it, but I am.
Well,
and so when tension builds up, I don't want people to get hurt. I want to have a way to modulate, but I don't want it to be boring either. So I hear that I see that you have skills in that domain beyond the emergency room.
Well, I love what you're saying. Where are you located? You're out of state?
I'm in Bellingham, Washington, right next to Vancouver,
Oh.
British Columbia.
Maybe at some point you guys can come on down and have a little meal on me. We can.
Well, who pays is, maybe we'll get in a thing and somebody will get the $100. But yeah, I think it's inevitable that we'll be down there and that we'll meet you, and
That's beautiful. I'd love it. And Chris, being the way he is, he's a Marxist without knowing it. He's a renegade. So it's been an easy suture for the two of us.
Yeah, same here. I mean, Chris is an interesting guy.
Aren't you, Chris?
Hi, Chris. You're there. Oh, we're talking about you, and you're sitting there.
This is great. Keep going.
Yeah. Well, I mean, heck, it's all the major themes. It's these ancient themes about why be alive and for what, and where are the controls, and what energies do matter, or what concepts even lead us to what matters. When you said emergency room, of course, I'm going to think of something like, well, we know what's going on the outside, we think, but what have the cells got to say? What are those little creatures doing?
Oh, yeah. I'm a very unusual physician. I wanted to be a writer. That's what I wanted. I went to college, major in English. And then probably you were there in LA, Watts occurred, and they in a similar period of time, they shot the kids in Kent State. And I'm a freshman at IU, Indiana University, and I'm going, I don't know about this writing thing. I think I could starve as a writer. So then I switched to chemistry and then to medicine, and I never regretted it. I mean, it's a great way to make a living, and I always had fun. I mean, the 2 days of my life when I wasn't having fun at work, I went home, called somebody else up, and I said, you need to come here, because and I didn't use those words, but if I'm not having fun, I'm a dangerous doctor.
Yeah, that's beautiful too. The idea of play
Yeah.
is relatively missing from the culture, period. And so to have, I do a lot of neurofeedback. I've got equipment, and I was doing it years ago in these programs. And some gang kid walked into where the residence was and said, "Hey," he was it's kind of a thick Hispanic kid. He goes, "Hey, man, I hear you fuck with people's brains." He says, "I want you to fuck with my brain." I said, "Sure." I was finishing up with somebody else. And so he eventually sat down. I hooked up the electrodes. I did the neurofeedback for 20, 30 minutes. And when I was done, he looked up and he said, "Oh, this is so weird." Because there was a basketball court outside. He says, "This is so weird. I feel like getting up and skipping across that court," which is completely non-gang. It'd be such a
Completely
sissy, you would
non-gang.
skip. Yeah, that's right. But that's what was hidden in his subconscious.
Mm.
Yeah.
The
That's
fuller
what,
person
that's
could-
what I call the poetic.
Yes, that's yes. Yes, 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 yes. Yep. What
Well,
else, Chris? Come on.
Chris, what do you want us to talk about? I have a talk I'm giving to some people at 11 that I promised a month and a half ago to, and it's forced me to get bring a few pieces together. It's all these, basically a bunch of people in Washington, D.C. and the East Coast who were actors in the U.S. government at fairly high level. And they have this idea that I don't have any belief that they will be effective, but they're interesting anyway. It's called the DG Forum, and it's to relocalize governance, so that we could, because their lives were in government, and I think about it quite differently. But they're actually all, I wouldn't say all, but most of them are gradually coming over to my point of view without me doing any persuading. Anyway, I put together a page that I'm sharing with you. Look at it on your own, or I could walk through it with you, but that would give you a pretty in-depth, maybe too in-depth picture of what I'm up to. And Chris, what I want to do with you at some point, I don't really care when, is have you look at this, and you and I can think about when I come down there. I mean, part of what Carrie does, she took directly from experiments I did in my kitchen and then did with 5 kids out in a high school, and she's incorporated in there. But I don't have any desire or any particular skill in doing what she does. She's really, I've watched her. I was her driver and she's really good at it. So I don't have anything to add really to what she does. So I can go back to what I do, which is build infrastructure for autonomy.
Well, on the picturing side, I'm picturing you driving Carrie to the community center. I'm thinking about duration. Thinking about that the Carl activities that you're talking about, Carl, I think is definitely the right precursor to Carrie. The question would be, when would be a good time for Carrie and her schedule and you to come to Superior, and then finding when, like, even just generally when that time might be. We kind of work backwards from there on when we want to start with what we're doing with you, Carl, and we can coordinate this a little bit.
Let me make a suggestion, Chris. Sure. I'm involved with some younger people, mentoring kind of things, and one of them, Antho, he runs a group. He's got his own business called Sound Movers, and he's got this giant sound system. I mean, just huge. And so we had a meeting last night, and then somebody else there, Josh, he's an ex-Marine, 28 years old. There's a lot of motion and activity with a lot of reaching out going on down here with these different people. And I'm connected up to a degree because of that, plant medicine, other kinds of things that are going on. So, and then to boot, there's a Taiwanese kid I know because I met him at the park 3 years ago. A little bit different story, but long story short, with him, he always wanted to come to America. Always. He saw these images, he saw Hollywood, he saw dancing. And so there's a fairly long, lengthy narrative that goes to it tries to go to his soul, but it's not actually soul work. But it seemed like soul work from the Taiwanese bus stop because it was so active and it seemed so joyful and it seemed so animated. But now that he's here and trying to finish up a PhD program in material sciences, what I've uncovered a little bit, unfortunately, is there was a lot of shenanigans along the way to get him this far. And the only reason I'm telling you this is it appears that we're at the, maybe, trust me, that we're at the intersection where he might not get the PhD. This thesis might not get written for very mechanical reasons. And where his real heart is to be a DJ in these very animated younger person spaces that do happen here, down here. And so when I'm thinking of people like him, and I'm thinking of Sleepy Superior, I'm imagining a space, maybe your space, where the event that Mark and Carrie come down for to meet, how we meet, but that there's an event. It's at the space. It's a provocative, stir it up. Can this really be happening in Superior kind of evening? And we kind of seed the whole thing, not only younger people in Superior, but if we have enough time, we want vans full of people to go up to Superior to be part of this groundbreaking, et cetera, to set a stage, to throw a hint, to, create an aroma or a sense of purpose that's very different for everybody who comes up there, and certainly for the people already there. So with your dad and that librarian and those coffee shop owners and the people who run these restaurants and serve menudo, etc., to get them into the building, shake a leg a little bit, let go a little bit, because if no one lets go and they just stay in their zone, this ain't going to happen. Or not that much will happen.
I'm all in favor of the vision and the intention behind it, and like the potential that's there too. The part that I feel myself getting resistant on is like the things that we're going to want to do before Carrie and Mark show up. So we're maximizing the time that they have, especially for Carrie to do her in-person see the system stuff. So doesn't mean we can't have this badass bash beforehand, but I would also want to see that you've already come here a few times for us to have that cadre of students who are already in the right frame of mind to receive the stuff that Carrie's going to be putting down.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, I think sequence, that'll have to come, from Superior, clearly. But the thing I wanted to answer your sort of a mundane question. There are two things going on. Carrie intends to come here the beginning of November. We're, as you know, in negotiations. We've been asked to come down and help an FQHC, Federally Qualified Community Health System, and the state of Oregon do stuff kind of at the grassroots level in Medford, Oregon. And we're waiting. He asked us for a proposal. He didn't want to tell us what to do, so we gave him that on Monday afternoon. We're kind of waiting for a response. We told him Carrie's really not available till the weekend, so we'll see. But because that, but I don't particularly think that that's a problem. In other words, we intend to work mostly remotely with them. So, we can schedule around, whatever we decide first. Whoever gets the calendar first, the other one works around it. So I don't view it as a big problem, but I want to go back selfishly to my part because I never quite got around to saying what I want. I'm imagining when Carrie's there, the work will be with, well, you know what she's up to. So what I would like you to think about is having a group of people, maybe it's just you and me, or you and me and Carl or something, but a group of people who could kick the tires on relocalized creativity. Not just the premier program, but the structure, so that we can get feedback on what would be perceived as useful, so that they can essentially capture their wisdom as they go forward. That's how I look at relocalized creativity. It's basically a house in which you take experience and wisdom and make it vernacular, make it reusable. And that's kind of a weird thing to say, but it's becoming very quickly. I've worked for the last month now on really a deep dive into pattern languages again. And so it's pretty clear to me I can turn maybe every single page, almost every single page in the Fed Wiki, around that, into a pattern. And then people don't need any lectures on patterns.
Yeah.
They see them.
Yeah.
And they go, wow, I can write those. I can improve those. And the pattern is nothing but a way to transmit wisdom.
Let's definitely spend some. I mean, there's probably ways we could do that before you show up too. I would imagine, right?
Yeah, but I just think, yeah, absolutely. And then people would know if they wanted to show up or not. But what I would love to get, while Carrie's, giving the experience to the kids, is real engagement and feedback. I need so much learning. I need to learn so much about how this stuff needs to change and morph so that it's useful to people.
You see its effects in use in order to do that, right?
Well, yeah, and again, it wouldn't be in Carrie's world. It would be her program would be in there, so people could say, oh,
yeah,
this thing that's happening out there is instantiated here.
Yes.
Because Carl, earlier I wanted to mention, I wrote it down but didn't say it, is we have this idea of see one, do one, teach one, which came from medicine. And your program, it would be interesting to me to see if, when you bring your way of helping people become agents of their own will, if that couldn't be set up. I mean, you don't have to do anything different there, but the expectation is that the people who are experiencing it are now going to go do another one, and you're going to be their coach now instead of the circus master. You'll be their coach, and then they'll do one, and they'll help those people, and you'll probably watch them. But I'm imagining a 3-step sequence by which the wisdom that you have developed could morph and spread geometrically. I just don't think we have that much time left on Earth.
Yeah.
If we don't find out. That's why I keep influencing anyone who'll listen to me, is we have to change our models of working and helping so that they can spread. Otherwise, the world is going to go.
It doesn't look too good. That's right. It sure doesn't.
But geometric spread, once you figure out how to do it, I mean, Omicron did a good job. We just need to do as good a job as Omicron.
We're at least at the arithmetic phase, willingly, right? Like Carl, you and I just had that early conversation of like, who's taking up the practices of the things that you've put forth, and I certainly have an interest and an appetite for it. So that's an arithmetic before we get to geometric. What do you think about that, Carl? I mean, what you do, there's so much subtlety to it all, and there's so much that is like outside of the propositional space to even like put words to, in terms of like the feeling of how these kinds of experiences are facilitated. Do you see a geometric spread in what you're talking about, or do you like, is that within the realm of the possibility space from, or even desired from what you see?
Well, it's probably just a combination of shape and function. Those things are probably communicating with those aspects are in constant contact with each other. The shape of something, the geometry of something, the function of that shape, and the shape that happens after the function happens. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, the grid I use if I'm doing psychological work is a 4-part grid. It's purpose and motivation. Motive for what? It's capacity. Is there ableness of some kind or another? What are the real requirements? Knowledge. What's the know-how? If there's data needed, what is it? It doesn't have to be. And then lastly, opportunity. How to set those 4 things up so they interface as elegantly as possible. Because the human being is so goddamn insecure that they fuck up these things one way or the other. If somebody's at the top of purpose and intention, they may get nervous that someone at the bottom, so to speak, someone new, is coming along with something new, and they block that person's opportunity. Or we can go on and on and on with permutations. So that's the grid I use, and mostly what I'm talking about today is number 1.
Yep.
And so that reward system, that dopamine system, that activation system, that system that finds and seeks and discovers, that's the major one so far that alerts the attentional properties to look up and show up. So that's how I'm feeling about the number 1 part. So when I say hold an event, I said, well, yeah, we got to stir up the sleepy town.
We got to wake it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if you went down this road, but I don't think you can have a geometric spread of orchestras. You can't have an orchestra, so see one, do one, teach one. But you can do one, see one, teach one about the first lesson with a violin.
Yeah, that's good.
Hey, good morning. Peggy just got up. She's right behind me.
Hi, Peggy.
She'll be coming in to look at these cookies, which are right there. I'm gonna take a little sliver right now, like I always do.
Well, you got to make sure the product is up to snuff.
Oh, I don't even have that excuse anymore. I just go fuck it.
Okay.
Wow.
That's not a sliver, Carl.
Carl, if you have anything you're in writing that you're willing to share with me, I can tell you I am very interested in learning.
I have a little piece. I went through the garage a couple of weeks ago took me 2 weeks to get through shit. And in that, and actually, piece I wrote, I've got to get offline here pretty quick, called The Haunting Space of Change is the name of the piece. And in this piece, in my view, of course, it's incrementally unfolding. So the reader, and in the case that I was working before, these people who are motivated to watch somebody else change. It's just like, it's so aggravating to get a bunch of PhDs at the table where everyone's pontificating about something for somebody else. So that's what that piece was for.
Nice. To
let all these therapists know change is just really alienating until you're wearing a new suit. And people don't want to jump into a pool in their tuxedo, and they don't want to wear their bathing suit to the ball. And so there's a feeling of potentially displacement in much of what we're talking about, because it's got an alien quality. And it's got a delicious nutritional quality. Wow. Superior can be such and such. But superior will never be what it was. And It's not supposed to be.
Nope.
Oh, yeah. This is going to be it's going to be fun. Sounds like you need to go if I heard you correctly. And Chris, I don't know what you're up to, but yeah, I don't, if Chris, I think you can just look through that link. Did you grab that link?
I do. Yeah, I have it up.
Yeah. And, I don't know that you need to listen to me drone on. I'm thinking about in this call, I'm going to have all these 70 something year olds. They're not all that old, but a lot of them are. I think I'm just going to have them read it. I can't stand to hear myself talk.
Or ask someone in the group to read it, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just let them hand it off.
You want a good exercise, have them read it backwards.
That's how I read every book.
That's right. That's right.
Or in a funny accent.
Yeah.
So we're on with Carrie at 11:30 Arizona time. So she's available.
I'll be in this other meeting.
Nice. So I'll be on with her. And Carl, if you want to join on that and meet Carrie, then you're welcome to. If not, all good. I'd like, if we can, to keep this a recurring time, if that works for you, Mark. And if this isn't as convenient and we want to switch it to another time, we can. But
I just want to negotiate. I'm interested in having you, after you look at that, hopefully you'll be more interested in allocating time to use your own FedWiki site, because it's becoming more obvious what we would do with your FedWiki site.
right
You
on.
guys, I got to tune out. We'll see each other again.
Okay.
This
Bye-bye,
is really
Carl.
encouraging.
Yeah.
Bye, you guys.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye. Yeah.
I really get the sense that, like, okay, if this is the kind of team we're assembling here, we're going to be up to some really great things. I mean, I really feel that.
I'll feel that when we're listening to the kids. Yeah, I mean, I'm hopeful. Obviously, I'm here, and I'm from the first hour I met you, I was committed to helping you, whatever I could do for you, because you're alive. I don't mean because you're alive like I mean you're really alive, like he's talking about with agency. And I don't run into people like you very often. Frankly, it's too bad, because the world needs a lot more people who aren't scared.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not scared. If
Nope.
you are, it doesn't slow you down.
Nope. And like the reinforcement of everything that's happening is like just it's like this virtuous cycle,
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. So I still, and again, I'm in no hurry at all about help, you starting to use the FedWiki. There is some anxiety about, not big, about wanting to be sure that we get around to it sometime.
Let's get around to it soon time.
Because I have the 9 o'clock after the 8 o'clock. I have that open, and I'm going to keep that open but I'm not going to invite other people in to learn the FedWiki from me until you and I have stepped into that space, because if it's quicksand, I don't really want to have a party in quicksand.
I'm available now if you are. If we need to do it another time, we can too.
No, now would be great. Let's see. Do you have access to your site?
No.
I think it's just called chris.relocalizescreativity.net. Why don't you share your screen? That might be the most fun way to do it.
There we go. Cool.
I haven't given this a minute's thought. I'm not going to do it the way I've taught it before. I'm going to do it, and we're recording it, and we can splice this. You might stop recording and start again.
Okay.